Good as gold at this end. Glad to... You've changed the glasses.
Oh, no, yeah, the glasses are somewhere else. I didn't leave them in my normal position. And thanks to the warm, glowing feedback from many of your listeners and viewers, I decided not to go and find them this afternoon. But they'll be back. They'll be back next week.
Yeah, they don't have to come back, Will. I mean, really, they don't have to come back. I'm just telling you that, But, Christopher Biggins has been on the phone asking where they are. That's
where his glasses are, yeah.
Where are they? Listen, we've got a lot of great stories to look into here. We are going to talk about drones, or are they UFOs? What's going on over the United States? Is this some kind of Iranian mothership? We'll come to that shortly. I want to start with this. When we've talked about AI, and I think you and I were talking about AI and things like digital ID 20 years ago, before it was trendy to talk about this stuff. Some of these themes had different terminology back then, but nonetheless, we've talked about this a lot, that eventually, for example, they'll be able to perform medical operations by not even being in the same country.
Exactly.
Things like that. That happens now. And there'll be a form of technology that evolves to the degree where technology is able to pinpoint the issue rather than the human. And that's absolutely where we're at now. And Correct. This is an incredible story around where artificial intelligence meets breast cancer. There's a headline. What's the detail, Will?
Yeah, we've obviously talked about the value of artificial intelligence in kind of detection and treating stuff. And this is a story that's super close to my heart because we've got to the end of the year, and via the luck of some experimental drugs that are being trialled at a hospital in London at the moment, my partner's just got over breast cancer after an 18-month fight. And it was something that was refusing to leave her at various points. So having medical advances in the NHS has been fantastic. But what's fantastic here is they've worked out a new method of, if they fire a laser into your blood plasma, they can then take the data that comes from doing that and the information, run it through artificial intelligence, and can effectively detect breast cancer at the earliest stage possible they've ever been able to do it. And that's down to the to artificial intelligence being able to help devices interpret the results. So this is incredible news. They've said it's at the earliest point it's ever been so far, and if they train it on more information, it will get better. And this is one of the really interesting points that I think the government and others need to underline better, Ian, because people keep saying, I don't want to give permission for my data, my medical data, to be used by external parties. I don't want to give permission for the NHS to sell my medical data. Arguably, one of the things that may come from it, and I don't care whether you want to sell your medical data or not as a person, but the one thing I will say to people is the more medical data that can be fed into these systems, and it can be trained, you can train these algorithms on, the better they're going to be at detecting this kind of stuff. So it's one argument in my mind for encouraging people to not be so paranoid and concerned that the government's going to misuse their information.
Well, the entirety of the medical industry, I say the entirety, a substantial portion of medical advancement is down to data and data sharing, and without it, nothing really progresses. And it's only when they've got the ability to be able to compare and contrast and look at different cases can they sort of move forward. And I thought what was interesting about this particular sort of AI procedure, it's a non-invasive test as well. And as you know, and I know from my mum having breast cancer, some of the injections, shall we put it that way, that you are required to have in order to establish your cancer, are pretty unpleasant for women. And this is very different. And that hopefully will be the shape of medicine to come, where very simple tests that once upon a time involved, cameras in all sorts of places, will no longer have to apply as if we advance in this manner.
Yeah, and we've all been sort of talking about the negative impacts of artificial intelligence, I guess, a lot. But if you use this as an example about where it's already being used and applied, this is a game changer. If they can already, at this early stage in kind of this research process, detect cancer at its breast cancer at its earliest possible stage it's ever been detected before, just imagine what they can do with a few years and some time. And there was big news this week in Google. We're not going to go into the whole quantum computing thing from this week, but Google announced one of the sort of fastest computer chips ever this week. And that's going to be able to solve in the future, years down the line probably, but might solve many of the world's most complicated remaining questions, because it's going to be able to do really, really complex kind of equations and complex formulas and work this sort of stuff out.
Who would have thought that Google would have ended up here as well? I mean, this used to be a place where you went to look for where you could buy yourself a bucket or something, you know, and now, I mean, the Ask Jeeves boys must be thinking we should have kept this going.
Yeah, Hasta La Vista as well. They were the other ones.
Well, yeah, aptly named,
no,
as it
Hasta La
turns
Vista, Alta Vista, not Hasta La Vista.
Well, it turned out to be Hasta La Vista. That's the way, that's the internet for you. That's how it works. Let's look at this story. Relief as first UK patients fitted with an app-controlled sleep apnea microchip. Now, the word microchip will obviously destabilise some people who are discombobulating as we speak. Sleep apnea is not just a huge problem. From what I understand and everything I read about this, it's a growing problem as well. You know, there's some real issues around. So you sleep for about 10 minutes a night, Will, don't you? So you know a little bit about a lack of sleep, but sleep apnea itself is a real problem.
Yeah, don't have it. Got tested for it when we were trying to work out why the hell I couldn't sleep. But lots of well-known people have it. On the One show, Ronan Kemp, handsome young lad, he's had sleep apnea for a number of years. There's all sorts of people in the public eye who have it. Now, it affects, a wide proportion of society, and it's often undetected. Yeah. And everybody got super excited earlier this year when Apple said for the first time their Apple Watch would be able to detect potential signs of sleep apnea in how your heart rate and some of the movement in your sleep, and you would then be able to go, if it triggers this warning, you'll be able to go to a doctor and ask for a test. But the challenge with that, Ian, is you're going to see hundreds and thousands of people, likely once this feature is switched on, going to try and get diagnosis of this. And it might save some lives, but it will also cause bigger strain on the NHS if people suddenly come forward with something that isn't often detected. But back to where we are with this other version, this is the idea that people who are diagnosed, rather than having the Darth Vader-style face mask and tube with the oxygen shoved up your schnoz when you're sleeping, this will give you a gentle shock, which will encourage you, I think, for the soft tissue at the back of your throat to move when you're sleeping, and will stop you from having these episodes where your airway blocks, and hopefully give you a better night's sleep and reduce the risk of stroke and all of the other things that can come with this particular condition. So this is a British developed piece of tech, and we're going to see more of this stuff. And like you said, this will trigger a load of people and say, I don't want a microchip installed. What else is it going to do to me? What's my 5G signal going to be like, etc., etc., etc. But this is the kind of the technology that people are that needs to be introduced, and it could potentially save lives. So it's a chip on a nerve that controls the tongue muscle, basically. Yeah, basically. Long story short, that is what it is. Yeah. Wow. And I mean, there's lots of areas that, you know, until we started really going down conspiratorial rabbit holes, nobody would have blinked at this. They'd have gone, that's amazing. Really good idea, yeah. It's a chip that they put in and it controls it, like all sorts of other areas of technology. Then that's brilliant. Yeah, and that's where we would have been, but we're now in a world where everything has a second dark conspiratorial meaning, to the extent that I think I've already seen suggestions somewhere online that Bill Gates is the shadowy funder of this medical organisation that's creating these chips. But it's easy to spread patent cobblers and misinformation via the internet these days. That should be no surprise to anybody. But first, I think it's a big reveal, to be honest, Will. The UFOs have arrived. The UFOs are here. They've landed. They're around Manhattan, or wherever the heck it is, New Jersey. We've made connections with aliens. True or false? Well, firstly, I want to tip the hat to the late Howard Hughes of this parish, the man who would be all over this story if he was still in the game. This is an incredible story in that these drones have been sighted, large drones. Some are saying bigger than the size of a table. Some are saying larger than a Toyota Camry, which is a very specific car, American brand
very
model,
specifically named, isn't it?
To choose. But they've been seen by multiple people, and we've got video evidence of sorts of these drones in the sky. Bizarrely, Ian, they come out at night. Right. They're at an indeterminate height. They've been spotted above a number of places in New Jersey, including Donald Trump's golf course and a U.S. armory. And a U.S. armory is where all the weapons are held. So if the U.S., I keep thinking if the U.S. the U.S. Army were that worried about it, they probably would have blown it out of the sky if it had flown over the armory. Everybody's sort of wondering what this is until a senator in New Jersey came out the other day and claimed that it was an Iranian drone mothership positioned somewhere off the North Jersey coast outside of Atlantic City, which is where Trump used to have all of his casinos and stuff. Yeah. Now, that was quickly denied by the Pentagon, who said, no, there isn't an Iranian drone mothership off the coast. At which point the senator said, the Pentagon are lying to you, to Americans.
Wow.
So you find yourself in a unique situation where these things have been seen in the sky. You can't really tell how high up they are or exactly what size they are in the dark, but they exist. They've been spotted. Some people are claiming there's as many as 50 of them in a swarm that they've seen.
So they're not just, this wasn't a one-off sighting. No. This is recurring.
Yeah, recurring after dark in multiple places. They've been cited by all kinds of people. The FBI have put out an open appeal through US media to say, if you've got any information about this, let us know. Even the FBI claim they don't know what these things are. The US are saying they don't believe it's a foreign entity. So my answer to that is, who the blooming hell? Where are they from?
Well, I noticed,
who do they belong to?
Yeah, I noticed one Democratic senator, Richard Blumenthal, has called for them to be shot down if necessary. I mean, that's fine, but what if it's little Alfie's Christmas present drone that's just up there taking some pictures of the skyline or something?
I don't think little Alfie is flying one around the size of a Toyota that you and your family would
Maybe
be
his dad is an engineer and has built him one, like, Potts from, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
The other thing that's interesting about this is a load of locals in the US say, look, we've tried to fly our drone up to it, and we fly our drone up to it, fully charged battery, and the moment we get close to it, battery failure, thing falls out the sky.
No.
Or
so
they've
it's
not been
sucking the power out of other drones.
Yeah, or they've not been able to launch their drone when something like that is flying above them. So my theory, Ian, and this is as equally as unproven as everything else, is they are US military drones. Don't know what they're doing, don't know why they're mooching around. But big drones of this size and this agility exist. My parents live next to Salisbury Plain, and Salisbury Plain is used by the UK Army to test large drones. And you occasionally see them mooching above the houses of West Wiltshire, and you think to yourself, oh, there's a military-sized drone. It looks like a small plane.
That's a big bit of kit, yes.
Yeah, so arguably, probably something in the realm of that. Why they're bringing them out after dark, why they're not communicating to Americans, why they're not being used and tested, don't know. But it's a strange old story and a vacuum of information, which has led from everything suggesting that everybody from, once again, Bill Gates to George Soros is involved in funding some kind of dystopian drone police force, which is suddenly going to be unleashed on the US. But watch this page, because you've got senators saying that they're from a foreign entity, the government saying it's nothing to do with a foreign entity, the US Army not blowing them out of the sky despite having a chance, and the FBI putting up a phone number and saying, call us if you've got any clues as to what it is.
Wow. So there's clearly a story here. I'll tell you what, we're going to keep our eye on this and find out where we are next week on the latest instalment
Drone Watch.
of the Drone Watch flying over New Jersey. but apparently it's not an Iranian mothership, and the Pentagon are keeping stum. Finally, Will, Christmas is nearly upon us, just a couple of Fridays to go. We've been looking at tech recommendations around the Christmas period, as we do each year, bearing in mind it's upon us. What do we got this week?
Well, a man of your vintage will remember the Polaroid camera, and I expect you had one for those. You know, did you take one to those days on Doctor Who? Did you have one?
Well, when I was on Doctor Who, no, I didn't take it. I did have some pictures. When you say a Polaroid camera, is that the one where the film comes out the end, the picture already developed?
An instant picture already developed.
Yeah, one of those. No, I didn't have one, but my mum and dad bought one. I thought it was the most incredible thing they'd ever purchased.
They're back this Christmas.
Get out of here.
The Polaroid Go, around about £80. It's such a great story behind this for a nerd. If you're a nerd like me, it's not great for anybody else. There was one machine left in Czechoslovakia that could make Polaroid instant film. The company has been brought back to life. Mostly Generation Z hipsters fancying a Polaroid camera. But they're a really big seller this Christmas because it's a fun item for somebody who likes taking photos. And, it's great to take photos of the kids or whatever you're up to over Christmas with your family. Get some Polaroid pictures, print them out, stick them up in your office, on the fridge, that kind of thing. And yeah, 80 quid. You can get a camera from Polaroid.com, or you can get them in most electrical stores and online too as well.
I would imagine have they updated this? Is there a little screen on the back of it as distinct from what used to be there, or is it exactly as it was back in the day?
It doesn't look quite like the one you were given in 1972 for your 20th birthday, but it's all the same technology as you had back in the day. So you can I think you can adjust the zoom on it, and then it's a case of looking through the viewfinder, taking a picture and hoping it's what you thought you captured. And people do all sorts of, there's actually a growing trend for this kind of move back into more traditional methods. Physical photographs. Yeah.
Well, and they are quite nice, even if you stick them on the fridge for the kids, that kind of stuff. You can, it's sometimes quite nice to see a picture, although not other people's pictures, which is very boring, particularly their wedding photos.
Yeah, it's like buying a record. And I went into a music shop the other day, and there's a whole rack of cassettes now, Ian. It's like being in your car from 10 years ago, all them Status Quo and Shawaddy tapes that you had in that vehicle.
Under the Moon of Love was a classic. I won't hear anything bad said against it. Very briefly, Will, Cooperman says, does Will know anything about the Google quantum chip? Are you familiar with this, Will? If not, can you do some research?
Yeah, no, I do know about it. I've got about 20 seconds, I expect. So it's called Willow. It was announced earlier this week. It can do a calculation, Ian, that would take a typical computer, one with 24 zeros after it hours. So it's a peticillion or something like that. It can do it in 5 minutes. They've been very selective, though, because it's like putting me up for 100 meters or a cake eating contest. You know which one you would choose me for. But quantum computing is all about using quantum physics, and it means you can do much more complex stuff all simultaneously rather than one calculation at a time, which means computers can do a lot more at once. And this is going to be really exciting. It's years away. It's billions and billions and billions of dollars of research away. But this chip from Google called Willow is the first big step towards making it possible.
And making a lot of other things possible as well. Will, thank you as ever. He is Will Guyatt, Talk's technology correspondent.